What's up, sneaky people? It's your boy at Big Kicks and Gear, and we are back for part 2 of my Jordan 4 SB Pine Green Legit Check series. And I'm back with a different batch, which in my opinion, I feel like is a little bit better. And I'll go into details why I think that, but before I actually get into the video itself, there's something that I've been noticing about the content surrounding the sneaker, and specifically the replica content surrounding the sneaker, and kind of bothers me a little bit. I've been doing this for a while, and I know that there are people that do replica reviews that, you know, they do it for the free shoes. They do it because sellers will send them something, and the only way that they can continue to keep that gravy train going is if they continue to say good things about the shoe, to the point where sometimes it's not even truthful. So you guys know that my channel focuses on legit checking. Yes, I do feature replicas on my channel from some of the same sources that everybody else gets them from, but my job here is not to sell you a product. My job here is to show you a service, and that's legit checking. And I do my best legit checking when I have an authentic pair here, and that's why I spend the money to buy the authentic pair so I can put these guides together. Well, there are a lot of people that are, let's just say, not as diligent as I am, that I feel like are not being honest about the shoes that they're getting. They're not being honest about what the differences are in the reps. And I know that I go into pretty great detail when I do my videos, and I'm not trying to put that burden on anybody else, but at least be honest. There are a lot of people misleading the public about the accuracy of reps, where reps come from, and all this other stuff, and I don't know, it bothers me to the point where I felt like I had to say something, but I'm not going to let this rant take up more of this video, but I just wanted to say that. And I appreciate you guys for coming here to see my legit check guides, to listen to me talk and go into detail about how real shoes and fake shoes compare, and I always appreciate that. So without further ado, we'll get back into what we came here to see, and it's these Jordan 4 Pine Greens. Now, as I said, this is a different batch than the first batch that I did, and in my opinion, I feel like this batch specifically is better. Still has flaws, but it's better than the last batch for a couple of different reasons. And just like every other video, you will be able to go to the Instagram account on the screen, and you'll be able to see as many pictures of this shoe as you need, all the angles, all the stuff that I point out, so that you can better educate yourself. Now, the box for these is exactly the same as the first video. The easiest way to tell them apart is the label. The label text on an authentic pair of Jordans will have slimmer font than on the rep. When you compare them side by side, that's what you'll see. And I will do a quick screen grab of what that looks like. Authentic pair on the top, rep pair on the bottom. Look at the Air Jordan 4 Retro SP. Look at the size numbers. You can see that on the top, the text is slightly thinner than on the rep. And that's pretty much it. Boxes are more or less the same size on this. Jumpman are pretty much the same size, but always focus on the tag, and that's all that really matters. From there, we'll talk about the shoes and the things that I learned from the last video in terms of what to look for legit checking. A couple of things. First thing to pay attention to is the texture of the suede going around the toe box, along with the toe box shape being slimmer than your traditional Jordan 4, but specifically, this is not a standard suede. It's not a long-haired suede. It's a short-haired, coarser suede, and you can see that here. Reps, for whatever reason, don't do that, and they're using a standard suede just like any other Jordan 4, and Nike chose this one specifically because of the purpose of skateboarding. The next thing I noticed is the actual texture of the upper. The texture only comes from the grain in the leather. There's no pitting like synthetic leather has. When you push it, you see the material wrinkle, but when you get up close, you don't see any like pits or surface imperfections in the leather. The next thing that we're going to look at is the color of the greens all around, the green paint, the green eye stays, the inside of the green tongue, as well as the green rubber. And while we're talking about the rubber, we're going to talk about the feel of the rubber and make sure that it doesn't feel like plastic. And then the last thing that we will talk about is the Blacklight test, and we'll see if there's anything that we can pick up there. So that's the rundown. That's particularly how I legit check these at this point in the game. So the first thing that we're going to look at the suede on the toe. And as I said, it's a short-haired, coarser nubuck, and the toe box is sleek and slim. So this is the authentic pair, and here is the rep. As you can see, they're still using a more standard nubuck. It's more textured. It looks a little bit better than the first rep that I saw, but it's still got that texture to it, and it's softer than the authentic pair. But when you look at the toe box shapes, they actually look very similar. I'm actually really impressed with that. The last rep that I saw did not have a slimmer toe box, but this one does. So that's impressive. But when you look at the suede that wraps it around, you can see that texture difference, and you can also see that the contrast between the stitching and the suede is just a bit different. There's less contrast on the rep than it is on the authentic pair, but that's definitely an improvement from the last rep that we saw, for sure. From there, we will compare the leathers, and what we're looking for here is smooth leather with little to no pitting in it. If you want to know what I mean by pitting, please look at my last legit check video. I really go into depth of what that looks like. GR synthetic leather, they're not actually like mirror smooth. They have pits in them, very small, very like not noticeable, but they're there. For these, it's supposed to be smooth, and this actually gets it. It is a similar kind of leather. It's not exactly the same because the authentic pair definitely feels softer, but it is very similar in terms of appearance. It doesn't have that pitting that the other pair had, but it's still very plush. You still see the grain tumbling, so that's actually pretty close. I'm actually pretty impressed by that. Actually, you can see some slight pitting in the leather itself, where it's just not present on the authentic pair outside of the grain. But let's see if you can really get close up. Notice how it looks like there's like thousands of little dots that are in the leather. That's what I mean. When you look at the authentic pair, you don't see that. All you see is wrinkling. So it's a small tip, but it is something nonetheless that you can look at. From there, let's start talking about the colors. So we have our authentic pair here on the left, we have the rep pair on the right, and side by side, I would say the greens look almost identical. In fact, I will say that the greens are identical in terms of the paint. That's super surprising. Let's focus here on these little pods here, and you can see that they are the exact same color. I would say maybe the authentic pair has less of a gloss to it, but the color's definitely there. It's definitely exactly the same, so that's not something that you can look at. But when you compare the white leathers, they are slightly different. This is more of a brighter white, the rubber here on the authentic pair, while the rep has more of a kind of duller, darker white, almost like a very light gray when you see them side by side. A bit of contrast there. The next thing that we want to look at is the color of the green eye stays, and side by side, there's a slight difference in color for the rubber eye stays. It's hard to really explain. It feels like the green on the rubber is just a little bit more of a forest green, while these are more of a brighter, more vibrant green. Still very close, much closer than the last rep that we saw. Let's take a look at the outsoles and see. You can really see the difference in terms of the white colors here. Not a huge difference, but a difference nonetheless. But you can see the difference in the gum colors as well, with slight gum imperfections here, but that's just a molding issue. I wouldn't really call that an authenticity check, but I would say that the authentic pair is just a slight bit darker on the gum than the rep, and you can see that on the heel as well. And then from there, let's take a look at the back tab. Now, just like in the last video, I talk about how the back tab is rubber on the Authentic pair. The letters are rubber, the whole tab itself is rubber. While this definitely is softer and more flexible than the last pair, it's definitely not rubber. It's still a very soft plastic, or maybe even like a different kind of rubber, but when you actually feel it, it doesn't have that grippiness that the rubber on the Authentic pair has. They feel completely different. But in terms of looks, they look very, very, very close. You can see that there are larger gaps in the lettering on Nike than on the Authentic pair. And then the leather rides up a little bit higher off the midsole than on the Authentic pair, but I know this can vary, so I'm not going to really say too much about that. In terms of height, they are very similar heights, and shape as well. A lot of reps have an issue with the back tab being a certain height, but these are the perfect height. They look exactly like the height of the Authentic pair. As far as colors go, there are slight differences in colors too. The back tab is definitely more of a darker green here and a lighter green there, but still insanely close, and you really got to hone in on there to see it. From there, we're going to go to the inside of the shoe, and we're going to talk about the white sock liner and the green tongue liner. As you can see on the Authentic pair here on the left, the greens are slightly different, but not only are they slightly different, but they have a completely different texture to them as well. You can see the visible horizontal lines there in the rep, while it's a lot more blended on the Authentic pair and a lot more subtle. And the same exact thing goes for the white sock liner. You can see the very same lines on the inside of the rep as well, but on the Authentic pair, it kind of looks just like a fuzzy sock. There's no pattern or lining or anything like that. Without taking out the insole, we can take a look at the Nike SB branding on the inside of both. And what I can see is that the air under Nike SB is thicker on the rep than it is on the Authentic pair. Just look at the eyes in air to really display that difference. And then from there, before we get into the Blacklight test, the only real thing that is that I feel like you could legit check are the sides and the size of the windows here. Look how massive they are on the rep compared to the tight, compact, neatly stitched Authentic pair here on the left. Turn on to the medial side and it's the same thing. Massive windows, tight compressed windows on the Authentic pair. And then from there you can also see another slight color difference in the Flight. It's a lighter green and it's a thinner, lighter weight font for the Flight than on the rep, which is darker and more bold. Color wise, they look very, very similar, but there is a satin kind of finish on the Authentic pair that is not present on the rep. It's dull. It's very much so like traditional Jordan 4, but they are different. That's probably going to be a really good indicator in the months moving forward. I don't see this being updated for a rep at all. They're going to continue to use what they use for other reps because that's how rep factories work. They are trying to make the best product for the cheapest they can, and that means they have to consolidate and cut corners, and that's how they cut corners. They're not going to develop a whole new special process for a rep like they would, like Nike would. It's just how they work. But other than that, they have a very, very, very similar appearance. So from there, let's do the Blacklight test. So for the Authentic pair, we're looking for things that light up. And it looks like for the Authentic pair, you have the wings here that light up and react. The under netting lights up and reacts. Stitching across the forefoot. The gum sole almost looks like it glows in the dark, but it's not. Obviously, you got paint and glue, or I should say glue, going around. Other than that, nothing really reactive on the shoe itself. Now, when we look at the rep, we should see something similar, hopefully. But the first thing that you're going to notice, just like the other, is all of those guide marks. this is all over the place. And this is normal for reps. This is something that they do so that they can make sure they are aligning things the best that they can. Looks like we got a lot of major paint correction on these two. You can see that fluorescent here. Not something that you see without the Blacklight, but it's there. Going around the shoe, we should be seeing these wings react to the light, and they don't react at all. While when you look at the authentic pair, very reactive, and that tells you that they're not using the same material. This definitely feels like a harder plastic than the authentic pair, which is rubber, which is probably makes a lot of sense as to why it's not reacting the same. So, but you do see the netting reacting, I should say the mesh underneath the netting reacting, just like you would like to see it. You're not getting much of a reaction out of the gum sole that you get from the authentic pair. They look very different. And other than that, I think that's it. As always, the Blacklight does reveal a lot, and I'd say probably if you're looking at the Blacklight, the biggest indicator outside of all of the guide marks is the fact that the wings do not react like the authentic pair does. All right, guys, that is it. There isn't really much else to go into, but thank you for sticking around to this 15, 16, 17 minute video. I know that I really, kind of go into depth, a kind of depth that a lot of other reviewers don't go into because that's not what they do. But I'm not going to sell you a lie, right? I'm going to tell you exactly how they're different, and it's your job to take that information and make a decision for yourself. So I'm glad that I'm doing that. I would say that these are pretty good. There are some things that would make me pause, like the size of the netting, windows, the fact that these wings aren't actually rubber, or not, at least not rubber in the same way that the authentic pair is. But visually, these are, in my opinion, are a lot better than the first rep that I saw. The toe box is shaped much slimmer than the one that I saw before. They're clearly attempting to make this look like the authentic pair, so that's good, but still very legit checkable, just based on the suede materials used, that kind of thing. So with all that said, guys, please take notes, pay attention, don't buy the hype for the people that are just trying to convince you that the reps are perfect and that's it. I'm not against reps, but I'm here to tell the truth, like I said. And there are people telling you that these look exactly the same, they're the exact same colors, they use the exact same materials, when they don't. I'm not saying that that makes them a bad shoe. I'm just saying that it's not true. So with all that said, that's all I got. And don't forget, you'll be able to see all of this on the Instagram account that's coming up here. So like I said, with all that said, see you in the next one. Peace.